Hi, everyone. I have a really important question to ask you. What if you're not as fucked up as you think you are? What if, throughout the course of your life, you have come to believe lies about yourself that are not actually true? What if you were born a whole and perfect person, fundamentally unharmed and unharmable, but you came to believe things that weren't true based on your life experiences, based on what people told you, based on traumas you may have gone through, and those beliefs stuck with you, became the truth of your reality. You ended up attracting people, places, and things that would mirror back to you the truth of your story. And then you find yourself later in life wondering, why am I depressed? Why am I addicted? Why am I so fucked up? I'm here to talk with you today about how we come to believe lies about ourselves and what we can do to change them. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, an addiction and trauma specialist, and an empowerment coach based out of San Francisco, California. And I've been in the mental health field for over 25 years. And the one common denominator that I've noticed with all the people that I've worked with is that people are fundamentally seeing themselves in a really negative way. I'm not enough. I'm all alone in the world. I'm unlovable. I'm unworthy. Some sort of variation of the idea of I'm not enough. And I see how much pain and suffering that creates for people. And I see how that judgment that people hold toward themselves and towards others creates all the suffering we see in the world. So I became motivated to write this book really based on my life's experience, which of course includes my own personal experience, as well as my experience as a professional in the healing arts for so many years. So what this book is really about, what I hope it is an empowering message, a hopeful message that we can actually become more conscious of how we came to believe these lies about ourselves, and to give people hope that we can change them, because there are techniques and tools that we can use to change the way we see ourselves, and thereby changing the way we see others in the world. So I start the book off with this idea: what if it's your perspective that creates your reality? Okay? So when you believe things about yourself, it becomes a filter or a lens through which you see the world. For example, you might walk into a crowded room and see two people in the corner talking and looking in your direction, right? You might interpret that as, ooh, those people are talking about me. Ooh, I know they're saying I'm fat. I know they're saying I look stupid in this outfit, right? You make assumptions about what other people are thinking when you have no idea. Those people could be in the corner, just happen to be looking in your direction. They might even be looking at someone behind you. Or they might be so blind without their glasses, they can't even see who you are or make out anything about you. And yet in your mind, if you believe people don't like me or I'm ugly, you're going to interpret that experience as people are looking at me and talking about me. So how does this happen? I, like my good friend and colleague, TJ Woodward, TJ and I share one common way of seeing the world, which is kind of a spiritual perspective, which is that we are born whole and perfect, right? When you look at a young child, a baby, a young child, before they get conditioned, before they get domesticated by this reality, which is a term that Don Miguel Ruiz, the author of the 4 Agreements and Mastery of Love, has written about extensively. Before we get domesticated, we're actually bright little beings of joy, light, and love. When you look at little children, they're just in the moment, laughing, playing, being happy. If something happens, if their friend knocks them over, they fall down, they cry for a few minutes, and then they get up and they start playing again, and they're the best of friends. They don't hold a grudge against that person. They don't sit there worrying about, oh my God, am I going to get knocked over again? They're not dwelling on the past. They're not worrying about the future. They're right here in this moment, in the present, right? And then things happen. You go to school. You go maybe to church. Your family starts telling you things. This is how you're supposed to act. This is how you're supposed to look. School especially, you have to raise your hand before you talk. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You have to walk single file down through the hallway. Right? You start getting these messages about what you're supposed to do and not do, good and bad, right and wrong. You start being taught those things. And if you don't comply with what's expected, then you might get in trouble, or you might get told things. You're stupid, right? You're not enough. You're wrong. You're bad, right? How many kids get that message? You're bad. You should be punished. You should be ashamed of yourself, right? We don't typically say it's your action or your behavior that might be problematic. A lot of kids get that message, I'm bad. And if you are abused, if you're verbally abused, you might have directly been told those things. You're a piece of shit. You're never going to amount to anything, right? When you're a child, you don't know any different. These people are the authority figures. If they're saying it, it must be true. As a child, you don't understand that maybe mom, dad, the teacher, whoever told you that, maybe they were abused as a child. Maybe they were treated in that way and they've got their own stuff going on that has nothing to do with you. But as a child, you don't know that. Children are very egocentric, right? The world revolves around them. They think that everything is because of them. When I was a little girl and I was about 7 years old, and my mom sat me down and said, your dad and I are getting a divorce. My first thought was, what did I do wrong? And how can I fix it and make it better so they don't do that? I was convinced it was because of me. I didn't understand anything about affairs, money issues, power struggles. None of that made sense to me. I was convinced it was my fault. So we can get these direct messages and we can get indirect messages. So, for example, if you are being neglected, if mom or dad is not paying attention to you, your emotional needs aren't being met, you might come to believe that I don't matter. I'm not important because I'm not enough. Again, you might not understand. Maybe mom's in her bedroom all the time because she's depressed or she's on drugs or whatever it is. And it has nothing to do with you, but you don't know that. And so then you come to believe these things about yourself. I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm not enough. And then once those beliefs form, what happens? Energetically, you'll start attracting people, places, things, and situations that will mirror back to you the truth of those statements, right? If you have an abandonment issue and you believe that everyone will leave you because mom or dad left you, dad must have left. I thought that too when my dad left. Oh, he must have left because he doesn't love me because I'm not enough, right? So then if I grow up with that belief, what's likely to happen? Who am I going to attract in a relationship, right? The people that will leave me, right? Because I'm always we are looking as humans, part of our psychology is the confirmation bias, meaning we're always looking for the evidence to prove to us that what we believe is true, right? So if I believe I'm unlovable or everyone always leaves me, I've got to keep attracting that situation over and over again to prove to myself that it's true, right? And that then concretizes that belief. I borrow that term again from my friend TJ because it's such a brilliant term. We concretize these beliefs and they become solid truth to us. And anything that doesn't match that belief, we cannot accept, right? If you believe that you're ugly, you're fat, whatever, if someone gives you a compliment, oh, you look really great today, you look really pretty in that dress, you're like, oh no, they're just saying that, they're just trying to be nice. You won't receive it, right? So think about what that creates. There's this term in energy psychology, which is one of the modalities I work with, called psychological reversal. When basically you are not energetically congruent with what it is you say you consciously want. So you might say, I really want to be in a healthy, happy relationship, but you're holding subconsciously below your awareness the belief that I don't deserve it, or I'm unworthy of love, or everyone leaves me. How can those things, you're not going to have that happy, healthy relationship. You can't attract that because you don't believe that it's actually possible. This subconscious belief has a stronger hold on you than the conscious desire for it to change or for something different to show up. So what energy psychology provides us are some really amazing tools to be able to change the energy around those beliefs. So once I kind of lay it out in the beginning part of the book, how we come to believe lies about ourselves, and then I also have a whole chapter devoted to trauma, because trauma has a huge impact on how we see ourselves, especially, and it's not always, people think trauma, big T trauma, abuse, assault, natural disaster, something really horrific like that. But they're the little T traumas that happen every day. Being bullied at school, the heartache of breakup, losing a friend or a loved one, those things can be really traumatic as well. And so all of these things form how we see ourselves. And then the latter part of the book is really around, okay, now how do we change that? So from traditional psychology, we have this wonderful technique called cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy says your thoughts, whatever you're believing to be true, creates emotions, and from your emotions, you engage in behaviors. So if I think I'm unlovable, I'm going to feel really sad and full of shame, and I'm going to attract people that are going to reinforce that feeling of shame, right? I might pick abusive partners or whatever it may be, because I think that's what I deserve, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy would have you looking at what is the thought underneath all of this, or the belief that you hold, and then you would challenge it. Is it true? Where is it coming from? In the first chapter, I use Byron Katie's The Work, right? Is it true? Is the thought true? How do I know it's true? What does it feel like when I believe this to be true? And what's another way to look at it? Cognitive behavioral therapy is basically that. You build on it, right? You can do a thought record. In chapter 3, I do a thought record. I show you how to do that. I give you examples where you take a situation, right? I have a conflict with a person at work, right? And it's making me really frustrated. What's the situation? The situation at work. It's making me feel frustrated. It's making me feel angry. It's making me sad. What are the thoughts creating that? What evidence do I have to support that that thought is true? What evidence do I have that supports that that thought is not true? Is there a more balanced view that I could take? And then how does that change the way I feel? Classic cognitive behavioral therapy. It's great stuff. I talk about thought distortions. We tend to have thought distortions when we have this kind of thinking, things like black or white thinking, all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing. Oh, I know the worst possible thing is going to happen, right? Personalization, right? Oh, those people in the corner, I know they're talking about me. I know it's all about me. Minimizing or maximizing, where, for example, you give a performance or something, a talk like this, and you get feedback forms. 98 of them are stellar reviews. 2 of them, not so great. You disregard the 98 good reviews and you fixate on those 2 and you decide the whole thing was a failure. Minimization and maximization, okay? We engage in these distorted thinking patterns and most of us are not consciously aware of it. So I'm trying to, with the book, bring some conscious awareness around our distorted thinking. What are the perspectives, the points of view that we have that are creating the reality that's not working for us? And then I start moving into, because as my career, progressed from traditional psychology, my own personal journey through a chronic illness took me into alternative therapies, holistic-based therapies. And that's when I discovered energy psychology. So I have, a couple of chapters devoted to what energy psychology is and the idea of ask and receive. The problem with ask and receive, it does work. But when you're asking for something like, I want to make $1 million a year, but you have a belief that I don't deserve it, or it's not safe to have that kind of money because everyone's going to come after me to take it, you are in psychological reversal. You're not energetically congruent with what you're asking for. So that $1 million is never going to show up because you're not willing to receive it. Right? So I try to bring some consciousness around getting clear on your ask, getting more conscious about what you're asking for. Because again, unconsciously, if you're asking for people who are going to abuse you or leave you because you're unworthy, you're going to attract that. That's your ask that you're putting out to the universe. Please bring me more pain and suffering because that's what I deserve. You want to get conscious about your ask, and then you want to ask for something different. Then you got to clear the blockages you have to receiving what you're asking for. And then I discovered access consciousness. And it's a lot of the work that I do today. Access consciousness is a combination of hands-on energy work and verbal processing. Again, working with energy. And access talks about how your point of view creates your reality. Okay? And it also talks about what if the vast majority of what you think and feel isn't even your stuff? What if you're super aware of others around you? What if all these things you've been thinking about yourself, I'm a horrible person, I don't deserve to be happy, what if that stuff isn't even all yours? What if you're picking up on it from everyone around you? You know, I would sit in my office in a chair like this in my private practice, and different people would come in, person after person. And with each person, I would feel so different. With one person, I'd feel like, oh my God, I'm like crawling out of my skin with anxiety. With another person, I'm like, oh my God, this is so depressing. Like I can't even like keep my head up. With someone else, it might be before they would even come in, I'd be like, God, my knee really hurts. Like what happened? Did I fall down? Did I twist my knee? What is it? Next person comes in, they're like, oh, you know what? My knee's really been bothering me. Right? And I started realizing I am way more aware than I thought about what is happening with other people. In fact, for me, it starts the minute I wake up. I live in San Francisco. The minute I wake up, I've been chill all night. I actually am fine, but I start hearing in my head, oh my God, I have so much to do today. It's going to be overwhelming and da-da-da-da. And I immediately, before I've even opened my eyes, I attune to that. And I'm like, wait a minute, my day's not like that. I don't have to get all wound up about stuff. I'm picking up on everyone else's stuff, right? And then I get in the car. And it's like this frenzied energy, especially Bay Area. Everyone's driving. Everyone's like over caffeinated at this point. So like they're driving really aggressively and like I feel that, right? And then I find myself driving faster. If I'm not being conscious, I get caught up in that. And I start getting annoyed with people and honking the horn and, doing the crazy. Like that's not my road rage. That's somebody else's shit. That's not mine, right? So I talk about that. And what if some of the things you're thinking and feeling aren't even yours? And then we move into some of the other access concepts, like what does it mean truly to ask and receive? And what is a life of infinite possibilities? What actually becomes possible when we use tools? And I give you some access tools. Every chapter, like I said, has a different tool that you get to play with to see how you might change your point of view, your limiting beliefs, whatever we want to call them, to create a different reality for yourself. So one of the things that's really important in recognizing like how any of this happens, because most of us are on autopilot, right? We don't even recognize we're doing these things. I'm a big fan of meditation, but not the kind of meditation where you like try to quiet your mind. I was never the kind of meditator that could ever quiet my mind, but it's more the mindfulness type of meditation or Vipassana meditation, which is where you're observing. You distance yourself from thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, and you're observing. You're the witness. And you're trying to maintain kind of the space of non-judgment and just noticing, oh, that's an interesting thought. And look at that. That's an interesting emotion that's coming from that thought. Because when we become more mindful, then we actually can recognize, okay, I'm having a crazy thought. Time out. What's going on here, right? Who does this belong to? Is this even my thought? Where is it coming from? Is it true? How do I know it's true? Is this one of my core false beliefs that's gotten activated here? What other ways there to look at this? And I give you questions because the power of the question is a huge tool. Questions empower. Questions energetically open up possibilities. Answers, conclusions, core false beliefs, they cut off possibilities. Nothing else can come in when you've got the tunnel vision of I'm a piece of shit and nobody loves me and my life is crap and it'll never change. What else could come in when you've got that point of view? But if you stop and ask, where am I getting that from? And is it even true? And is there a different way to see it? How would my best friend see it? Right? Would my best friend think that about me? So I want to read you a little excerpt. This comes from the latter part of the book. I believe it's chapter 7 or 8. Judgment limits receiving. From the access consciousness perspective, judgment creates resistance and blocks receiving. When we're judging, making things right or wrong, good or bad, we're creating energetic separation and polarizing oneness. You're over there and I'm over here, and there's a wall of separation between us. You can't receive when you've got walls around you. Energy can't come in, and what you're asking for cannot get to you. Furthermore, a wall doesn't know what it's specifically supposed to keep out, so it keeps out everything. It keeps out all the good stuff that you would enjoy, in addition to the bad stuff you're trying to protect yourself from. This can include blocking the flow of money, kindness, fun, possibilities, and so much more. What if there is no actual good or bad energy? What if it's just energy? Remember that judgment is an invention, a human construct. Nothing in nature judges. The plants, animals, and earth don't judge. Only people do. As an example, consider color. Colors are just different frequencies of energy. Are any of them inherently better or worse than others? Or do we impose our judgment, our interesting point of view onto them? This thing here. I like the green. I hate that orange. Ugh. I mean, does any of that mean anything? I often say that judgment is the greatest source of human suffering. It shows up as a complete fabrication. It's taking a statement of fact or awareness and superimposing a judgment on top of it. It's one thing to say, this person's driving really quickly and aggressively, and another to say, this person's a rude, arrogant jerk who should have his license taken away. Or some other 4-letter words you might say. One is an awareness, and the other is a judgment and a wrongness. People limit their receiving with points of view such as, I don't deserve good things, I'm unworthy. This kind of judgment will cut off their receiving and only create more experiences to reinforce the limiting point of view, as discussed previously. This tendency to judge, which we learn when we are young, leads to a constant state of polarization. We're either aligning and agreeing with everything or resisting and reacting to it. This takes a lot of our energy and can be exhausting. We may find ourselves in a constant situation of us versus them, fighting to prove the rightness of our points of view and making others wrong. Or the other way around, making others right and ourselves wrong. In this reality, we are swimming in a cesspool of judgment in which everybody is trying to get it right while simultaneously having already decided they're wrong. What does this do to us over time? What effect does it have on the world? When you've decided that someone or something is bad or wrong, you cut off your receiving from them as well as your awareness of them, which can lead to unexpected problems down the road. It's that tunnel vision I was talking about. What you cannot perceive, you cannot respond to accordingly, and you may not be aware of what's coming your way because you have the blinders on, so to speak. When you are judging yourself, you're restricting your receiving, both your strengths and capacities, and your awareness of what you could be working on to expand and change your life. Judgment cuts off your awareness, limits your choices, creates separation and fighting internally and externally, and makes you feel bad about yourself and the state of affairs in your life and the world, ultimately leading to more pain and suffering for everyone. And that's how it is. This is how our world is, this insane reality we lived in is based on that. If you look at all the suffering in the world, whether it's internal inside a person or on a macro level, it's all about that. We're right, you're wrong. The color of your skin is wrong and we're right. Your religion is wrong and we're right. It's like, look at the fighting in the world. It's all about this polarization, this judgment. And so when I say judgment is the greatest source of human suffering, it is. And what my vision is for the world and my work here in this book is to show people that it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? We can make a different choice. We have tools that work to shift these polarized points of view. We can release our judgments of ourselves. We can start to see ourselves in a kinder, more compassionate way and in a non-judgmental way. We can stop aligning and agreeing and resisting and reacting to everything and actually choose something beyond that. The great Sufi poet Rumi from the Middle Ages has this, beautiful poem, and the excerpt I love is, "Out beyond all ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." That field is what I'm interested in creating for myself and for the clients that I work with and for the world at large. That's my vision. Questions, comments?
I don't know if this is specific to the book, but I'm sure you can weave it in. One of the patterns I have in my life that's come up only twice, but it's like the most painful, is being accused of something that I absolutely did not do. And it's not the accusation itself that's painful. It's my perception that their perception of me is so inaccurate. And both times that it has happened, it's when all of my intentions and all of my actions were actually aimed at doing the very opposite of what I've been accused.
Yep.
The part that's the most difficult for me is that I don't know how to get away from the anxiety and the pain that it causes, and I keep spinning and thinking about it and deconstructing it in my head and coming up with all kinds of solutions and taking on 150% of the work to try and convince them or solve it. And it can go on for weeks or months, and it's debilitating.
Yeah. I have personal experience with that. And I know many clients and people who have also had that experience. And there's a few pieces to it that I would look at. And one is, look at the connection between all the anxiety and stress and the point of view that you have that's creating it, right? I've been unfairly accused. It's not right. I need to defend the rightness of my point of view. I need to convince this person that they're wrong and I'm right, okay? Which is more of what I just said in the quote, right? So what if there is no wrong or right? What if their point of view is just an interesting point of view? What if it doesn't mean anything? You're giving it a lot of meaning and significance and essentially putting this person up on a pedestal and yourself down here under it, where their opinion matters more than what you actually know to be true about yourself. You know what is correct. You know what happened. You know what your intentions were. They heard or experienced something completely different. Why are you putting them up on a pedestal? What if you brought them back down here and just from the perspective of it's an interesting point of view, or what they think of me is not my business. I don't have to make it meaningful and significant. Right? I don't have power over what they think. I mean, I talk about this a lot in the book. We are powerless over what others think, what others do, what others choose. We don't have any power over that. What we do have power over is how we choose to respond to it, right? And so when it's come up for me and it pushes all those buttons, I use my tools. I might use the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement to shift the energy. I might do some tapping or be set free fast. These are tools I talk about in the book. I'm going to do something that I do have control over, which is how I'm seeing the situation. And I'm going to use a tool to shift that energy and shift my perspective so I don't have to stay stuck in that suffering.
Thank you. Can you share maybe one of your favorite tools or approaches that you mention in the book?
I really like the power of the question, and I give a lot of empowering questions here, like, what else is possible? How does it get any better than this? These come from Access Consciousness. I like those two tools because you can use them when things are total crap, like, this sucks. What else is possible, universe? How does it get any better than this? I'm invoking ask and receive. I'm asking for a different possibility to show up when I do that. If, on the other hand, when things are going really well, I say, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you, universe. How does it get even better than this? And what else is possible? And that's how things keep growing and expanding. When I started using those tools, my life, my business started getting bigger and more expansive. And things and people started showing up that were like miraculous.
So it sounds like to me, what you're saying is you're not asking for something and then it's just coming to you, but that there are all these possibilities out there, and it's a matter of tapping into where you want to go next and meeting it there in that open field that you gave as an example.
It's asking, it's like you and the universe. I talk about this in the latter parts of the book because this is an access consciousness principle. What if you and the universe are like 50-50 collaborators in creation, right? And your job is to ask and to get out of the way so you can receive. And then it's the universe's job to deliver. That's how it can work. But it's not my job to determine how. I never could have told the universe, hey, let's do it this way. My job is to ask and be willing to receive. It's the universe's job to conspire the details of how it's going to look and when and I can't be attached to when it's going to show up, how it's going to look, or come on, universe, TikTok, where's my thing I asked for? I've got to surrender attachment to the outcome. But if I can be receptive to whatever, it turned out greater than I could have imagined. Yeah, did you have something?
My name is Kimasi, and I guess my first question is, you spoke earlier about addiction. What causes addiction? Like, what are some of the situations and contexts? And then also, how do people escape it? What actually changes that relieves them from the addiction?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a different point of view than the usual addiction paradigm that would say it's a biological disease. If you have trauma, you're more likely to be sick. Yes, all of that may be true. But I'm actually going to say something that came from a colleague of mine named Marilyn Bradford, who wrote a book called Right Recovery for You. What if the primary addiction is not to the substance or behavior, but it's to self-judgment? What if it's that self-judgment and the pain of that self-judgment, the shame and the awe that it creates that causes the addictive behavior? And that if you were to actually address the self-judgment, like in some of the ways I suggest in the book, the need for the secondary addiction falls away. Because a person who feels good about themselves doesn't really feel like putting toxins in their body, right? Doesn't feel like doing things that harm them or others, right? When you feel good about yourself, when you're connected to that wholeness inside of you, the light within you, you want that for other people and you want that for yourself. And it creates positive energy and positive momentum, not self-destructive, wreckage. And then your second question?
My second question was more about energy. I think I was just curious, what are some different types of energy and what are the best energies to try and cultivate in yourself?
Well, I think it's hard to talk about. I don't think we have very good language for energy, right? I mean, energy could be as simple as rubbing your hands together and then what do you feel, right? You feel that energy, right? Energy can be the vibes. I can sense the vibes in the room when you walk in a room and there's like a creepy, weird vibe. Energy is these lights and the sounds. Everything is energy. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, physical sensations is all energy. And really the cool thing about energy is that it's shapeable and malleable and it never stays fixed. This chair looks solid, but it's made of molecules that are still moving. And eventually, give it enough time, it's going to decompose. It's going to change shape. It's going to change its form. Nothing is permanent. So instead of being at the effect of energies, especially other people's energies, because a lot of us are way more aware of other people's energies than we realize, what if instead of being at the effect of energies, we learn how to become energy manipulators? And we learn how to use energy to work for us rather than against us. How can, in AJ's case, when he's talking about the person who's judging him and accusing him of false things, how can AJ use that to his advantage? How can he use that energy to contribute to him getting stronger in some way, right? So I don't know if I would even say there are best energies. It's more like, what are you doing with the energies that are, and how can you use them to work for you rather than against you?
That makes sense. Energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, well, or either, however we want to go.
Adriana, thank you so much. I'm JR. so many things hit home for me. I'm very excited about reading this book. I'm excited because in 2012, my partner and I, we hit a kind of a snag in our relationship. We were snippy and snappy and raising our voice at each other. Our reactions toward one another were out of scale with what had just happened. So we went to some the 6 sessions that my partner's job would give us as for some couples counseling. 2012 became the year of being right isn't enough. And so you hit on that. And for people in whether it's intimate relationships, relative relationships, that you find yourself with that kind of bumping heads of who's right, who's wrong, what would you tell a couple that's going through that? Because the bottom line is the energy exchange that you're having with one another. And that's my first question. I have another one after.
I would say, what does it matter who's right and who's wrong? And let's be real. What does it create when one of us insists on being right and the other one insists on being right? And now we're in a tug of war. Imagine a tug of war of 2 people holding the rope and pulling and pulling and pulling. What is that creating? Is that
strife?
Is that right? It's creating strife and suffering. Is it honoring the love that is between you? Is it congruent with the love that you have with that person? No. So what would happen if all it takes is one person? What if you're that person who's willing to be maybe more conscious and you drop the rope? Or you say to someone, you're right, I'm wrong. Because when you're saying that, you're not actually buying. You can't say it sarcastically. That's not going to work.
Right.
Oh, you're right. I'm wrong. No. You can't say that. You're right. I'm wrong. All you're doing in that moment is acknowledging their perspective. You're right. From your perspective right now in this moment, I am wrong. How can we move beyond that? Because what is the person who's trying to fight to win their point of view trying to do? They're trying to get you to agree, right? So once you agree and you say, you're right, I get it from your perspective. You don't have to say all that. You just think that in your head. You're right. I'm wrong. Now where do we go? Can we move on now?
The tension has left the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of the old pillow talk method. Do you recall that?
No, but it sounds interesting.
I'm right. You're wrong. You're wrong. I'm right. We're both right. We're both wrong. It doesn't matter to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that just came out of nowhere. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, it took me many years to realize that I worked harder on keeping this persona alive out in front of me that I wanted people to think I was, who I wanted people to think I was, or all that. When I realized that I had been doing that most of my life, I've said it countless times. Oh my gosh, all that energy I wasted. I don't sit there and beat myself up about it or anything like that, but that was a lot of energy wasted. And one thing that you discussed really made me think about the support systems that I have in place today, that I want people to call me out on my bullshit. And I want people to help me recognize, oh man, JR, you've gone off the rails. Do you do much work with energy among like exchanges with families? Do you do, I understand group work, but like with people that are in their own nuclear system, I guess that's probably a question I wanted to ask. Do you do work with couples or families as well?
I definitely do couples work. I have a few couples that I'll usually have at any given time in my practice. And I actually do something that's different than a lot of other therapists, which I'll often work with both of the people individually. So I hear what's really going on and I have a better understanding. And then when I come together, I'm able, without disclosing or breaking anyone's confidentiality, I'm aware of what's really going on and I can ask the right questions to help them get the awareness of this is what's going on, so that then they can come to a different awareness themselves. Because I'm not into giving people the fish. I like to teach people how to fish.
Wow.
And the greater value is always going to come when you have the aha than if I give you the aha. So it's the art of asking questions and using my awareness to try to create something greater for the couple. Families are kind of a lot to deal with.
I'm sure.
So I have had times in my career when I have worked with families, and these days I do less of that, but 2 people I can manage.
Right. Well, thank you. Before we all leave, I'd like to get the Rumi quote again, because that really hit home for me.
Yeah. Beyond all ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
Thank you.
I have a question about avoiding. How you differentiate when you're avoiding because you don't want to see something there, or you're avoiding just because you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not sure when I'm avoiding something because there's something for me to learn there or to, overcome,
Mm-hmm.
or because maybe there's nothing there for me, or like I'm not interested. So I get confused with that. How you can help me to get more clarity on that?
It sort of reminds me, see if this fits. It sort of reminds me of the difference between numb and neutral. Being neutral is the space of the field. I don't have a charge. I don't have a point of view. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. I'm not resisting. I'm not avoiding, but it's not significant. When I'm avoiding, I might be numbing because it's something I do have a charge there. I do have a point of view. I don't want to look at it. It's too scary. It's too uncomfortable. It's bleh. So I'm just going to pretend like it's not there. Or if I'm using drugs, I might drink it out. I might try to numb it with some substance so I don't have to go there. Does that help?
Yeah. And how you change that charge? How you...
Right. Then I would be looking at what is the point of view, right? What is the point of view that I have that's creating this avoidance? What do I think is going to happen if? I like asking that question a lot. What do I think is going to happen if I look at this? What's the worst that could happen if I would look at this? And then when that energy comes up, then I'm going to use a tool, like one of the tools I offer. Maybe I'm going to use the clearing statement. Maybe I'm going to tap on it. I might use Beats Every Fast Cue, whatever it is. I'm going to change that energy so that I can get to a state of neutrality. If I look at my own personal history, I was somebody who for most of my life was highly emotional, highly reactive. I mimicked my parents, who were these combative, like really, my dad in particular was a very angry person. And I mimicked that. And I went around the world with a big chip on my shoulder, ready to fight everyone and everything. And with these reacting to everything, that person in the car, the road rager in the car, right? And then I learned these tools and I'm like, is it relevant? What is this doing to me? Yeah, like I had this revelation one time. I was complaining. I was a big complainer. Oh God, I would call my friend, all these things happened today. Blah, 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 blah. And then I realized I feel worse. When I engage in this thinking and I keep rehashing the thing over and over again, one, I'm keeping it alive. It's done. It's already in the past, but here I am resuscitating it over and over again. And I feel like shit. This doesn't feel good in my body, right? Why am I going to do that to myself? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm putting emotional toxins in my body, basically. Like, why am I going to do that? What other way is there to be with this? What would it take for me to get to that place of neutrality? An interesting point of view is one of the tools. I could just keep saying interesting point of view over and over again. Interesting point of view, this person is judging me. Interesting point of view, I care about their judgments. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view. There's something about saying that over and over again that lessens the charge and gives you the distance, right? Just like mindfulness meditation gives you that distance to be able to observe the thought. And then you can be like, well, this is a crazy thought. What am I going to do? I have a choice. See, that's the thing. When we're on autopilot, we're in a no-choice universe. But when we slow down and we start looking at what am I thinking, what am I feeling, where's it coming from, and you ask all these questions, you realize this is stupid. You might realize this is stupid and I don't care and it's irrelevant and I'm going to let it go. And then maybe I'm going to use this tool to help me. But changing your perspective, changing your point of view is what's going to change your reality. And if you are making it contingent on someone else changing, good luck.
Thank you.
You've mentioned you might tap on it or tapping a few times and you've touched your wrist. Can you describe what that is and just give kind of a little more detail about that? I know it's in the book, but for people that are watching, they might not understand what you're describing.
Yeah. I'm referring to EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or there are other variations on it as well, but it's tapping on acupuncture points, because when we tap on acupuncture points, it actually creates a calming effect. It sends an electrical signal up to our brain, to the amygdala, which is the emotional center of our brain, and it basically deactivates that stress response, like that fight, flight, freeze. It calms your nervous system. It brings your stress hormones down. It brings your feel-good chemicals up. And so you're able to get to a calmer space.
Thank you.
I want to leave you guys with another quote, if I may, if you guys don't have any other questions. And this is a quote from actually one of my mentors, Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness. And I think it really speaks to the vision that I would like to see and why I'm doing the work that I am. Imagine what it would be like if the world were a more conscious place. Would the devastation, wars, and difficulties that are going on continue to exist? The target of Access is to get us to the point where we are conscious enough to create change in ourselves so that we can increase the possibility of changing the trauma, drama, and insanities that are present in life. Consciousness is the opportunity to eliminate all the created walls of separation. What will it take for this to become a reality here? What would it be like if you embodied so much consciousness in everything you did that others chose to become more conscious as a result? You are the source for creating the change that you desire, but you have to be willing to choose it. All it takes is for you to choose. Thank you.